Hey everyone, welcome to this special episode of Quality Talks podcast. I'm really excited to have two very special guests on the show today. So you'll see that this episode is titled The Software Tester's Journey. And there's a very good reason for that. And it's associated with the two guests that we're gonna bring on in a moment. And those guests are Vernon Richards and Nicola Lindgren. Okay, so we're going to bring Vern and Nicola on. They're going to be talking about their new book, The Software Tester's Journey, and giving us some insights into obviously what the book's about, talking about themselves, talking about their careers and how the book came to be, why now. But also we're going to hopefully get into some just general discussions around what the book's about and some tips on if you're a budding writer, where can you start? As I mentioned in the last episode, I'm in the process of starting to write a book myself. So this will be really great insight for me, especially not that it's not to be too selfish on the side, but it'll be really good to kind of pick Vernon and Nicola's brains to understand more about how to go about writing a book, as well as obviously the challenges you face going through that process. I'm partway through the book myself, and it's I'm in it. I'm into it. Sometimes I start reading books and they don't sort of connect with me necessarily, but I can say this one definitely is. So I can't wait to sort of get through it all. But yeah, so I'm very excited to have Vern and Nicola joining the show today. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get them both on and let's get chatting. Hey Vern, hey Nicola, how you doing?
All good.
Yeah, really good. Feeling happy for this.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Yeah, it's I'm really excited to have you both on. So obviously we've invited you on to talk about your new book, The Software Tester's Journey. So that's exciting, isn't it? You've got a book. I mean, Nicola, you've got a couple of books, haven't you?
I do.
Already.
I do. This is just another notch on the belt. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, so she's like, Nicola's whatever.
No.
It's new for me. It's old news for Nicola. Nicola's whatever, book schmuck's easy.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to have you both on. I've started to read the book as well. I've got the digital copy and I've got the paperback copy. Personally, I like to physically hold a book and read it and turn the corners over when
Exactly.
let me know where I get to, those kind of things. So I've got both versions. So really enjoying it. But in case there's people in the audience that don't necessarily know who you are, how about you guys introduce yourselves? So Nicola, firstly, who are you?
I'm Nicola. I'm a platform manager for test enablement team, and I'm based in Malmö, Sweden, in South Sweden. I've been working in test since 2012. I've done quality coaching, test automation, test management, test leadership, a bunch of different titles. Worked in consultancies and product companies. I blog, used to create YouTube videos. And now, now I've been into writing books and trying to share what I've learned so far.
Perfect. And Vern, I know we know each other, but tell the world, those people in the world that maybe don't know who Vern is.
Yeah, sure, mate. So greetings, everyone. I'm Vernon Richards. I'm from a city in the UK called Leicester. It's one of those annoying cities that is not spelt or pronounced anything like how it's spelt. One of those UK cities. And I've been in testing for over 20 years now. At the moment, I used to have a really cool job title called Senior Expert Quality Engineer, but I now have a new job, which is I'm just a mere Senior Engineering Manager now. So that's new. I also have a podcast with my pal Rich. I also write stuff, so I'm trying to write more blogs and write more content and I present at conferences and host stuff as well. So that's me. Husband, 3 kids. Yeah.
The whole package, right, Vern? The
Whole
whole
package.
package. The whole
Yeah.
package. Yeah, yeah. No, it's great that you're both joining us this evening. And look, I mean, let's get into the talking about the book then. So, the software tester's journey. Okay. How did it come about? What was kind of the why this type of book? Why now?
Can I take this, Vernon?
Please.
Yeah. So I had this idea a few years back about a career book directed at software testers. The thing is, I knew that with what I wanted it to be and what I thought it should cover, there were gaps that I knew I lacked that I thought Vernon would have. I noticed also that Vernon had been, I think, presenting at conferences about career growth or something like that. I'd met him a few times, so I thought he was like a nice person. And also, I noticed he'd been quite into writing. So he had done this thing called Ship for 100, where he'd write a lot. So I knew that he was also into writing as well. So I reached out and I was like, "Hello, by any chance, would you like to write a book with me?" And yeah, I mean that's how it came about from my perspective. But I'd love to hear what Vernon thinks.
Yeah, so what Nicola did was she stalked. No, sorry. So what? So it's pretty much it's exactly what you said, Nicola. So from my point of view, I'd met Nicola a few times at a few different events, a few different conferences and stuff, where she was presenting and sharing her insight and her experience. And then I'd also noticed that she'd just gone nuts, like creating content. Because I think at the back end of 2021, I decided I need to get my ideas out there. Like I need to be sharing more of my viewpoints and things like this. So you're right. The course or the challenge thing I did was called Ship 30 for 30. So you had to do one thing. You had to publish one thing on social media a day for 30 days. And I did that a few times. And so in the middle of that, in one of those 30-day sprints, Nicola's like, "Hey, Vern, I'm writing another book," because Nicola's like a serial author.
Emphasis
Do
on
you want,
another.
Yeah, I wrote this book about how I remember it. So I don't know if you remember it like this, Nicola, but I remember you said something like, "Oh, I've written this book for how to get started in software testing." Now people asking me a bunch of questions, I'm thinking, well, this is another, I can just take all these questions and answer them. And you did say, "Hey, Vern, I think you could probably cover these kind of questions because I think you might have a different perspective. Would you be interested?" I was like, "That is an easy yes. Like, I get to write a book with you. Damn right." So that's where it came from. So the rest is history, as they say. So thanks for inviting me along on the journey, the author's journey. That's what we should write the next one.
Another book.
Yeah.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oh dear, yeah, perfect. So it's obviously, look, I've got the book here. Look, I've got the book here.
Wow.
Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. And what I love about it is it's really like it's written in a really relaxed way, kind of like you're just having a conversation with somebody, and it's not too heavy, and it's just. And that's what I'm really loving about it already. It's just, and that's the sort of books I like. It's like, don't try and like fry my brain too soon, because it takes me a lot of effort just to find time to sit down and read. So when I read, I want to be drawn in. I want to sort of like feel the conversation, if that makes sense. So that's what I really love about it. And what was it that sort of was it the questions that you were getting asked, Nicola, that then sort of led towards the career element, like the career journey type focus in the book? Were they the sort of questions you were getting asked from previous books that you'd written, or was it kind of a conversation with you and Vern to then shape it more around that?
I'll be honest with you. It's a little bit hard to answer this question because we did write this book for a while. for what I remember, it was a combination of questions I'd been asked. It was things that I wish I knew earlier on in my journey, and still now.
Right.
So
Yes.
with writing this book, there were things I learned from Vernon, because he's more experienced than me. He's had more roles. He's had a lot more roles of influence in his career so far. So it was that aspect as well. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
It's more. It was around how you kind of came to this book being about career journey and that side of things, because it doesn't get talked enough about. In my opinion, and I think that there's, especially from a software testing, quality engineering. I mean, how many different titles? Even in like the first few pages, you list them all, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, where do you even start with a career? Or how do you sort of signpost yourself to know which direction you're going in? So for me, when I heard that you were writing this, I thought, well, for me, that's kind of like an obvious gap in the market, right?
And that was another thing. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was both, with what I've been asked as well as what I wanted to learn. And I said earlier, with writing this book, I knew there were gaps that I thought, if this book was to be created and this idea I had, it needed someone else. And I had a rough idea of like the skill set or the complementary skill set that needed, because I would have not really done this topic justice if I tried to cover it myself. So, thanks again, Vernon, for
Can I just ask though, Nicola, was Vernon your first choice?
He was.
Or was...
He was. And I'm not just saying that. I didn't actually, because here's the thing. It was, I had no idea who I would have asked if Vernon said no or said something. I mean, people don't say no. They sometimes say, "Oh, I'll get back to you."
Yeah.
And they never do. I had no idea who I would have asked if it wasn't him. So,
Oh, well, Vernon to the rescue then, it sounds like. So good old Vern. But Vern, from your perspective, when Nicola reached out and then obviously talked about the areas of what the book will be about, and what was your first thoughts in that sense?
It was mostly excitement. It's mostly like, oh, that's a really good idea, because as Nicola's kind of alluded to, and the both of you are just chatting about it now, there isn't a lot of what's the right word? There's lots of pieces of advice everywhere, specifically for the testing specialist or the quality generalist in your life. There's stuff around, but it's not in one place. And so I thought it was really interesting, because it felt like a natural progression, because Nicola had written the first book and it had been well received and people had used it to good effect. It was like, oh, this felt like a natural progression. And I have because I've it's true to say that I have done a certain variety of, I mean, I've worked with you before, Stu. In fact, I've worked with Stu a bunch of times. I basically just follow him around until he gives me a job. So
I haven't given him his latest one though, so
he hasn't given me the latest one.
I've learned.
But in that, but that has meant that I've had lots of different roles, and I've met people with lots of different roles, and so the places where Nicola asked me to contribute more directly, it made a lot of sense, and I was able to do that. So I feel like I was able to add some value, because I'm not going to lie, I was like, why does Nicola need me to help write this book? Like, this is she's bloody making YouTube channels. She's written at least 2 books that I knew about, and I was like, what is she? And she's like, oh, well, if you talk about this topic and I've got, I want to cover this area, so okay, I can help with that for sure. So that helped me think about how I could contribute to the book, actually, and kind of not wonder, like, what the hell am I even doing here?
Yeah, nice. And the actual sort of that process of then writing the book, and obviously doing it in a collaborative way, did that throw up different challenges? What was that whole process like?
I'll talk. I'm definitely going to go first here, because I need to give props to Nicola, because basically what happened was, This was last year, right? This is 2023. We started this thing.
No, we started end of 2022.
Right, see? Right. So, we started end of 2022. And I don't quite remember. Genuinely, I don't remember why. But we actually wanted to get this out in 2023. But I don't know what happened to me.
Were you late? Was it you,
I
Vern? Were you late?
I was.
It was me. It was me. It was me. Yeah.
It was 100%. Like, I don't know what happened, but I feel like I just dropped the ball somehow. So, from my point of view, what happened was we started writing it, and we were making good progress. We had consistent conversations, things like this. But then by the end of 2023, I think we'd lost some momentum. So towards the beginning of this year, somewhere in that first quarter, Nicola's like, Vern, like, what are we doing? Like, are we gonna, like, we've written so much of this bloody book. Like, are we doing it? Like, what's the deal? I was like, yeah, we'll do it. So then by the time I'd say like Q2 rolled around, it was like, right, we're gonna do this thing. And then we got to the summer, and Nicola's like, right, when are we gonna do it? Like, it's getting to the end of, like, we're halfway through the year. Are we gonna? I was like, right, let me get a few more bits done, and then we'll target autumn, like Q3 kind of time.
Yeah.
So then once we put a date on it, then from my point of view, things seem to happen quite quickly. Like a date for the second time, I should say. So we should have released it in 2023, I think. It was like, we've done so much work, we've put so much energy into it. So, Nicola came through like a legend. It's like, come on, Vern, we can do it. So we did it.
Nice. How about from your side, Nicola? Was it? I mean, did it feel the same?
Yeah, no, I agree with Vernon's version of events. But I would like to expand on it a little bit.
Yeah,
the way I remember things, I suffered a personal loss in my family early February 2020 or February 2023. So I paused things. And then after that, I didn't really have anything to give. And then at some point I was like, okay, I've got energy again. So it wasn't just writing the book. I pretty much no YouTube videos, no blogging. I didn't blog for a year. And then, sometime earlier this year, I was like, well, hello, where are we at with this? And I'm not going to say a pushy person, but I am like a concrete person. So when I was like, okay, are we going to release it or not? And it was a little bit tricky, I found, with finding time in which we both had energy because, well, more so, I mean, I think Vernon has a lot of commitments. And then for me, with being a mum of two young kids, it was like, getting sick or just basically not say having sick kids, but sometimes I just didn't really want to do anything productive. I just wanted to like watch Netflix shows and chill on the couch and like watch YouTube. I didn't want to create. Yeah. So there were those sorts of times. And then at some point we aligned and we were like, oh, we both have energy. We both have time. And then we set the date and then, we, then we finished writing the book. So pretty much the book, as I remember, was like 80 to 90% done since like early 2023 before like personal emergency. But it wasn't at the point where it could see the public. So it was that last like 10 to 20% that we worked on this year.
Yeah. And both of you have done lots of different creative content like YouTube videos and blogs and stuff like that. How did this, coming back to your point there, Nicola, about the energy and that, how does writing the book or writing a book differ, or does it differ to sort of the energy you need to do YouTube or the energy you need to just blog? Is there a vast difference, or is it sort of very similar in that sense?
For me, I would say with writing a book compared to say a blog, if I was thinking about the art of writing, there is a lot of energy that comes then and the things that go around a book. So the promoting, the copy text, getting it into the system, publishing it, like all of these little extra things, editing it, that takes up energy. A blog you can kind of just write. And then there's this like, I wouldn't say pressure, but when you know that you're creating something that people pay money for. There's always that part where you think, okay, whatever we create has to be worth a lot more than whatever the amount of money people are paying. Whereas again, with a blog, it's free. They just click on a link and can read it. If I was to compare it to YouTube, one of the reasons I started with my YouTube channel, or at least for now, is I find it exhausting to record and to be on screen, I don't know, editing especially. I just found it exhausting. So for now, I feel like my outlet and what I find manageable in terms of my energy is writing. So hence I've been very active with my blog lately.
Yeah, nice. That makes absolute sense. I mean, obviously with doing the podcast, it's it's very time consuming. It's very energy draining, and people don't see what goes on behind the scenes either, do they? So,
I find the writing, it gives me energy. I find, and I think it's easier as well. Because there are less moving parts. I just need, something to write on, like whether that's a computer or pen and paper. It's easy for me to do anywhere. I don't know. So Richard Bradshaw and I've got this podcast. It's more of a podcast than a YouTube channel, but it feels like the video aspect of it is a thing. But I get energy from doing it. It's different to your channel, Nicola, because it's me and Rich. So we kind of, if one of us is not super energetic, then we pull the other one up. So we've got an advantage there. But I find when I start writing, it also gives me energy because I'm like, I'm getting this idea down. I'm like, I found a really cool way to say that. So I find it energizing in that point, in that way. The trick for me is just making the space to do it without being interrupted. It's like anything else. When you get into that flow state, you're like, like I'm smashing it, and then one of your kids jumps on your head and puts you in a headlock, or the fridge like melts down, and you got to go and sort that out, or something like that, or your wife is like, "Oh, you forgot to do X, Y, and Z." Like, shit, I did forget to do that. Do you know what I mean? So as long as I get that space, then it seems to be all of that creative stuff. It doesn't drain my energy. I think I think it increases it, actually.
Nice, yeah, and just sort of, obviously you've both got kids, and those kind of finding that time can be difficult, I'm assuming. And so how did you sort of go about, just like you say, making that time? Was it more of a did you try and get yourself into a bit of a routine, or was it just as and when, I've got half an hour here, let's get some stuff down, that kind of approach?
Excuse me. For me, I tend to write either in the morning, especially at the weekends. Absolute bliss, because I'm an early bird compared to everyone in my family. So my wife, the kids, they will stay up late and get up later than me.
Yeah.
So so we're recording this in the evening UK time. I went to sleep before I had this call. I was knackered. I've been up since 5, because I just get up naturally. And then to the energy point, I was like, I am going to be yawning on this call, so I need to go get some sleep. So I went and had a nap. Had a nap for like an hour. It was absolutely fantastic. But now I'm awake and I've got energy. So when it comes to writing, I just wake up, and that is the golden hour for writing for me, because I know everyone else is going to be asleep. Like, no one is going to be. If anyone comes downstairs, it's my son Amir, because he's kind of an early bird like me. So that's when I like to write, or after everyone goes to sleep, or towards the end of the day, people are doing their own thing. So I've got a small window, and it's small because I'm knackered, because I generally fall asleep. I'm like, everyone's had dinner, so they're chilling out, or they're in their rooms. I'm like, right, let me just sneak out a few words now. But generally, it's the morning is the best time for me, especially the weekends, because then I don't have to worry about any other commitments with work. I can just work. That's a right for hours.
Yeah.
My setup is a little bit different. So Vernon and I had a weekly call on Monday evenings when we were writing the book. And that's, I think what would happen is for 1 hour, maybe we'd talk for part of that, but we'd basically be on this video call typing, both on mute, right? But I don't know even if the camera was on. So it was a way to so I remember that. For me personally, the setup I have at home is that Monday and Wednesdays, 8 to 10 p.m., are my evenings, and then Tuesday, Thursday are my husband's evenings, and he games. And what that means is when our kids wake up, and they do tend to wake up and ask for us, then the other parent is on duty. And so that's how we so generally when it comes to creating, writing, whatever, Monday, Wednesdays are the evenings in which if something's going to happen, it will happen then.
So I followed suit with Nicola. I was like, right, I'll pick one of those 2 days. And based on what I've got going on, Monday was the easy choice. So we would do that co-working on a Monday evening.
No, that's cool. I think it's just being like you say, even if you're just on the call and got the cameras off, but you're there in that moment together, you're allowing that time.
I don't know about you, Nicola. Listen, that is effective as hell. Just having somebody on the call and you're not chatting, but you know they're working and you're working, and you have that synchronization or that commitment at the start. It's like, what are you going to write today? Oh, I'm going to do this. And what are you going to do today? Oh, I'm going to do this. And he's like, cool, I'll see you in an hour. And then you just get on with it. Everything's off. You can put on some tunes. I can see Nicola. Nicola can see me. So it's not like I turn the camera off and then sneak off to bed for a nap. It's like, no, I'm there.
Now the truth comes out. Now the truth. Oi.
But yeah, I found that worked quite well.
Bro. Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. Almost like pair programming, right? In to some degree. Living in the moment, in the moment together. Working on that output. So that's really cool. With the book itself, then, what would you say? Because we haven't really talked about what the book's about. I mean, I flashed it up. We've talked about it being. Here's the game, people. Look, here it is. It's on Amazon. It's on everywhere.
Product placement. Thank you very much.
Product placement. Look, I can't. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so yeah, what is the book about for those that maybe don't know?
So for us, I would say it's a career advice book directed at software testers. But the caveat I would say is that 95% of the book would actually still be useful for anyone working in IT. But there are some little parts of advice that is a bit more tailored for testers that non-testers wouldn't get as much value from. So we talk about networking, job hunting, mentoring and sponsorship, the different types of career paths that you as a tester may follow, going independent, and we also even cover what it might look like if you do choose to leave testing and those options that you may choose to explore that utilize the skills that you gained as a tester.
100%. That people, I think truly, on one level, you probably expect me to say this, but I think if you've been in software testing for any length of time, you start to say things like, this job would be easier if. You spend a lot of time with your head down, interacting with the product, trying to look for problems, trying to share those problems. But then you quickly start to say things, this would be easier if, I had access to production, or this would be easier if I could spin up my own test data locally, or this would be easier if, or this would be easier if, this would be easier if. And this book can help you with that because it starts to talk about things like managing up, talks about influencing, it talks about networking, all these kind of things. Well, which, as you start to say, this would be easier if, you start to say, well, maybe I should go in this direction with my career or that direction with my career. It's like, well, what do I even enjoy?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should do this thing or that thing or the other thing. And it talks about what happens when you become more and more and more experienced. It's like, well, do I stay in my organization or do I go and work for myself as a freelancer or something along those lines? So we try and cover a really wide space, and we also wanted to make it not super duper theoretical. So we wanted to make it quite, either it's a very long, if you like, experience report in a way. And we tried to make it as actionable as possible. Like, here are things that you can go and do now. So you've read about, I don't know, I've got the book here. Like, you've read about the importance of feedback. How do you actually do that? And then so we talk about it in the book.
One thing that, as I say, I'm in the process of reading it, and I'm actually coming at it and reading it because I'm in positions of leadership. I'm actually coming at it with that hat on, thinking, how can, obviously, being more empathetic towards people are looking to build their career and stuff like that, and actually, what can I do to actually help them enable that? So already it's kind of helping, like, just think about looking at it from a slightly different lens rather than it being me, like, looking at it from my perspective. I'm trying to look at it from others' perspectives. So already I can see that, the multitude of sort of people that it can be targeted at. And even like just organizations themselves need to be more aware of creating career paths that may differ, whether it be the people side, whether it be the technology side or the business side. And I know it's often not something that's thought about too much, in terms of people are still looking for those unicorns that can do a bit of everything, and whereas actually somebody might not want to be a people leader, they might not want to be a technologist through and through, later down their career. So how do we create those pathways for people to thrive? So even just, from my perspective, it's really sort of helping me think a little bit, and opening up some thought patterns around that.
Just on that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was something else that we chatted about a few times. That there's a lot of assumptions that the only way to progress your career is, well, I'm an individual contributor, and then I become a senior individual contributor, and then I start leading people, and I start leading more people, and I start leading even more people. And the two of us had seen that's not the only way you can approach this at all.
No.
And so we wanted to try and capture what else could you do? Because that's the obvious track. That is a real track that you can do that. You can have a lot of success and a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of person you are and depending what you enjoy. So we wanted to try and, at the very least, just open people's eyes to the possibilities that exist outside of that well-trodden path of where you just become, at some point, you become a people person, and then you just manage more and more and more people. Like, there are other options available.
Yeah, there definitely are, and I think it's for leadership and organisations to help enable those options, right? Because too often it's like you say, you start on a path, and that's it. It feels like that's your only option to keep on that pathway, and well, actually, we need to create, alternatives and supplement people with other people in different roles and stuff like that. So yeah, I think, for as I say, I've not fully read the book, but already it's sparking some thought patterns for me. So I'm very appreciative of it already. So yeah. So Nicola, you won't know this necessarily, but I've got a co-host on this show, Chris, and he's not been around for a few episodes. He's coming back very soon, so I'm super excited about that, because it's not going to be me doing this. Although I love having guests on, it's amazing. I do love it. But it would be nice to have my co-host back. But when I told him that I was going to be recording this episode, he sent some questions.
All right.
So yeah, I'm gonna read some questions out, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, where shall I start? Chris, there's just so many questions. He's just sat at home watching Netflix. You see, this is it. Okay, so what do you guys feel are the do's and don'ts to having a successful career? And how has the software tester's journey evolved during your time in the industry?
So
Bloody hell.
do's and don'ts of having a successful assessing career. I mean, parts of
Mhm.
like some parts we've covered in the book. So,
Yes.
but what some things that first things that come to my head would be learning how to manage up.
Yeah.
I've learned that since I've become a people manager, you get access to more information. You get to know about opportunities. So I think it's also good to communicate with your manager, saying what you want, talking about like your goals, whether or not you'd like to become a people manager in the future, whether there are specific other roles you're interested in, what you'd like to work on, because I don't think managers are mind readers, and to an extent they can read you and they can understand you, but they can't help you get to a place you want to be without you telling them and giving them that information. Another thing I would do in terms of like the do's and don'ts, learning how to give feedback. We cover this in this book, but I think that's a true skill, and especially the difficult conversations. Like it's easy to say to someone, "Hey, I loved. I thought you did a great test report," or "Thanks for helping me set it up in the CICD," so on. Like that. That stuff's easy to say, the nice stuff.
Yeah.
But when things aren't working out so great, and you're with a colleague, and maybe they're not quite pulling their weight, or maybe you're trying to work together with someone, and you're just not quite meshing. Learning how to have those tough conversations is really useful. The don'ts, I would say, I mean, for me, I do try to watch what I say at work in terms of a negative way. Um, if I'm
You
gonna,
suck.
I mean, you know what? Like, I think it's a small world, so I don't like
Yeah.
to burn bridges, especially like here in southern Sweden and Skåne. I've already seen multiple times people that I've kind of like worked with in the past or such. Now I see them again, and then like people that my husband has worked with, that they reappear. So that's
Yeah.
part of it. But also, like for me, I don't really like to send out bad energy.
Yeah.
It costs me energy to be negative. So um, I'm not saying that you should never ever be negative, but I mean, I do try to be mindful about what I put out there, and then knowing that I should be willing to stand behind it.
Yeah.
Um, and then your first question was around the software tester's journey and how it's evolved since I've started my career.
Yeah.
Um,
How have you seen it evolve?
so for me, if I think to when I started my career 12 years ago, software test automation wasn't as prevalent. Like, if I remember correctly, it was still seen as a niche skill set or a nice to have. But I'm seeing increasingly that it's more become of an expectation. And then I guess now there's like the use of AI, where I am curious to see if there's going to be an expectation on that people need to know how to use it. I'm still forming my opinion on that.
Yeah.
But that is something that I'm kind of keeping my eye on to see how things progress.
Nice. And Vern, is there from your perspective, excuse me, just clear my throat a little bit. Is there anything else you'd add to, mainly the do's and don'ts from Nicola's, what Nicola's already said?
Probably, yeah. So I think that the expectations on testers are to become. It's weird. It's like on the one hand, to build on what you said, Nicola, around tools, particularly GUI automation tools. It's almost like it's mandatory now, and there's an expectation that you must be a specialist in those tools. At the same time, I feel like we are absolutely being asked to be generalists. We're being asked to do absolutely everything. We're being asked to be experts at interacting with the product, experts in all the technologies that we may run into that our teams are building, experts in coaching because we're expected to influence our immediate teams, experts in leadership because we're expected to influence the adjacent teams to us and the culture up and down.
Yeah.
And so that expectation is it has upsides, it has downsides, right? So it has upsides in that your day job is going to be quite varied now as you become much more experienced. Where I had my first testing role in 2002, and it was very much interact with this product. It was video games, so it was play this video game and look for problems. You're like, cool, and it was just that for years and years and years. Here's a website, interact with it, play around with it, find the problems are, report them. But then it soon became, oh, and we also would like you to teach these developers how to test. Oh, and we would also like the whole team to adopt quality, and you're going to sort that out. Oh, and by the way, it would be great if you could shift left and do the testing there. Oh, and it would also be great if you could shift right and up and down and forwards and backwards and all around and do all the testing everywhere, which is all influencing and leadership. So,
yeah,
how does that translate into do's and don'ts? What I wouldn't do is it's really contradictory, but I think you should leave yourself open. So you shouldn't close yourself off to too many possibilities, particularly if you're at the outset, because you're trying to figure out what gives you energy and what drains you energy. So I wouldn't be too narrow-minded at the outset, but as you start to distill and reveal where your strengths are and where your energy is amplified, then I would start to use that as a guiding principle to figure out which direction you should go in.
Yeah.
And then the goal is not to become distracted by, other shiny objects or people trying to impose extra distractions or responsibilities on you. That's what I would do.
I think that's sound advice, and I think that's where leadership has to play a big part in that as well, though, in terms of just helping guide people more, because there is a lot of pressure, or like you say, and some of that pressure is on ourselves. We put it on ourselves because we feel like we need to influence in all these different areas, and if I don't have this technical skill, then I'm going to be overlooked.
Yeah.
And I know people that have just learned how to code because they felt like they needed to do it, even though they're not passionate about it. And that, for me, that is energy. It's sapping. You're doing something that you're not really passionate about, and so I think there's a big part that leadership needs to play in that side of things as well.
Oh, big time. I've got one more thing I wanted to quickly say, is that I think what it boils down to me is that you need to be intentional about your career.
Yes, that's really.
I was not super intentional about my career at the outset. That is for sure. Then the longer I stayed in it, the more intentional and deliberate I became about it, and that's what I would ask people to do is don't just expect your manager to have all the answers. Because I think I don't know who it was that said it, but managers are not mind readers. So if you don't tell them what you want and which direction you'd like to go on, they may not pick up on it.
Yeah.
And they also have 5 other people to worry about, 10 other people to worry about. God knows who. They have a boss sometimes. They have peers that are asking them to do things. So you have to be intent. It's your career.
Yeah.
It's not their career. All 3 of us are people leaders in one way, shape, or form. But we also are human, and we have other people that we're worried about. So if Nicola is looking after 10 people, you're one of 10 people. Plus, Nicola has her own bosses that are telling her to do this, that, and the other. She has her own peers that are asking to do this, that, and the other. So, not for no other reason than we are just human and we're getting pulled in different directions. You have to be very intentional, and you have to manage up. Say, hey, Nicola, you said that I could talk to you. That was 2 weeks ago. We haven't talked. I need that meeting, and I need it this week because you have to take control of it. Do not. And I'm yelling at myself now. Do not sulk in the corner when Nicola is just getting pulled in all these different directions. Doesn't arrange the meeting. It's like, oh, Nicola doesn't care about me, but she hasn't scheduled the meeting. Like, you've got to try and take control of the situation if you can, because I just think no one cares more about your career than you will. So you need to lead it.
Yeah, the one
absolutely.
Sorry,
no, go on.
The one-to-many relationship I didn't fully appreciate until I became a manager myself. And I remember wondering why sometimes past managers would forget things and they'd slip between the cracks. And then you kind of realize with this one-to-many relationship that things do happen. And then what I had to learn is before as I see the only problems I had to deal with were my problems or maybe the team's problems. But then by becoming a manager, now I have my problems, I have my team's problems, I have all the problems of the people who are in my team and then the other teams and projects I help. So it's like the scale of what you need to be aware of and what's happening. There's so many more moving parts. And then I'd say to my team, like, I do follow up. I do have like these systems in place. But when things do fall between the cracks, I say, please follow up with me. Like, I will not, like, even if you follow up the next day, I mean, it depends on the topic. Like, I'm not going to hold it against you, I'll be like, okay, thank you. And sometimes I'll say, okay, if you don't hear back by me on this date, then please follow up because I've probably forgotten if you haven't heard by then. And then some people do follow up, and then some people I still need to like work on that relationship to show that that I'm not going to take offense, or maybe they themselves forgot to follow up with me. Who knows? But it's this interesting dynamic. Like there's this career pendulum, or I can't remember where I heard about it, where while I wouldn't necessarily say everyone should become a people manager, I would say if you do get the opportunity and you're interested in it, I would say yes. Because that shift in perspective, I say, is super valuable. And like maybe you're not going to want to do that for the rest of your career for like years and years. But even I think there's a lot of value in getting that perspective for a few years and then see, okay, is this something I'd like to continue with? Or you can then switch back to being an IC and then keep that perspectives and learnings with you, because what the sort of information you get, you learn how performance evaluations are done, salary negotiations, like all of these things that you get access to, which you wouldn't have had access to otherwise. I don't know if we talked about that sort of detail in our book, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Is that the career pendulum thing? Is that Charity Majors? Did she write that? I'm sure it was Charity Majors.
So. Her name popped in my head, but I wasn't confident, so I didn't say it. Yeah,
I'm sure because that article is sick. Like you should go read that. Very interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there, Nicola, in terms of, I'd always encourage those people that are in IC roles to get some people manager experience of some nature. For those very reasons, I think it's really important that you see it from different perspectives. Especially, like you say, when it comes to annual review processes, and if you're contributing into those conversations, you need to be very mindful of what these other people potentially have to deal with, and so on and so on. So, it's definitely something that I would always encourage people to do. And the other thing to think about is that even if you're in an individual contributor role, you're still leading people. You might not be managing people, but you're still leading people. So you have to have a sort of a level of empathy and understanding of people that are around you that you're trying to therefore influence and guide and stuff like that. So that's really really good advice. Just one other question then from Chris. I mean, he is already asking, is there a volume 2? But I'll let you guys go away and think about that one. But he'd like to know what are your key learnings that you've taken away from publishing this book. Now, Licky, I know you've published a couple of other books, but this book in particular. And when you're starting to write a book, where would you even start? Have you got any tips for people?
From my perspective, key learnings from writing this book in particular, I would say if you're collaborating with someone, it helps to be clear about what you'd like and how you'd like to work together. And I think it's also because if you say you approach someone, or in this case Vernon, and you have an idea, it's nice that they would have an idea of what they're in for. And then another thing that what I personally found super hard about this book was scoping it, because there were multiple other possible chapters that could have been in it, but it was like I don't know. I mean, so the part 2. We haven't talked about a part 2, but there could easily be one because there's so much more
Yeah.
that we didn't say, but we
Yeah.
didn't know at one point, like, we actually would like to finish this book. And then, at least from my perspective, when I think about writing, often all of the other ideas, they were too much floating on top of my head, but they weren't really settling. They were kind of stayed up. So if I was to describe what happens between an idea and then something that actually goes out, things start to kind of float down onto the ground. And then when they land on the ground, that's when I can actually start writing. It sounds really weird, but that's how my head works. In terms of tips, was the question on tips on starting to write a book or just writing a book in general?
Just starting to, how do you get started? If you're a first time author or,
So tips, I think, on like writing a book or starting, I would say have like a rough outline or idea of what you'd like to write on. And then like develop it, like have like some chapters, because first thing is like, should it be a book? Should it be a blog? Or should it be like a YouTube video? Because I do think about, if I have an idea, what would be the best medium for this idea?
Yeah.
So that'd be the first question. And then don't underestimate how long editing takes. And then get feedback on the book, because what can happen is the ideas you have in your head, even if it's like you say you use something like Grammarly, but you could find that you refer to things that you didn't actually explicitly tell to the reader, so they don't. But then there was a bit of a loss in translation between an idea in your head and then what actually came across.
Right,
so getting that sort of outside feedback is really valuable. And then don't underestimate marketing. So I guess this podcast is like a version of marketing, right? But it's not like build it or write it and they will come. And the same thing in terms of like distributing content, such as, YouTube and blogs. You do have to think about how you distribute it. Because you can say that, okay, people will speak about the product when it's out, but you have to think, you do need to make an effort to put it out there. So Vern and I, we did have like this checklist of ideas of how we're going to promote it. We actually had like this launch plan. So plan that and then announce it in advance so people are ready for it. Get a waiting list ready so that a bunch of people get notified when the book is published. And then get testimonials. Sorry, I forgot to say that. So what you can do is you can share early copies of the book with a few people and then say, hey, if you like this book, would you be open to writing a testimonial? And then what we did was we didn't follow up with people. Like it was, if you have a testimonial to write, great. But if not, I didn't really want to follow up with people because I thought if they don't like the book, then I wanted them to like have an out, so I didn't want to, that sounds like a little bit weird. But yeah, the testimonials part, because people want to see like, what do you think of it? And then also have like, if you're going to use Leanpub, I like to utilize the free chapter so they have a rough idea of what they're in for. That's, yeah. I probably have more to say, but that's what came to my head so far.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
How about
yourself,
me,
Ernest?
it builds on a lot of what Nicola said. So I think for me, the thing that I learned a lot through my escapades with Ship 30 for 30 and devouring as much of Nicholas Cole and Dickie Bush's mentality and thought processes, you got to try these ideas, because there are lots of famous books that started out like, so what's the Daily Stoic might be one, like Ryan Holiday. That started out as a blog post. Atomic Habits started out as a blog post. So to Nicola's point, rather than write, and we all work in software development, there's this thing called agile, like build small and then iterate from there. So put your idea out on a social media platform and see what people think of it. Super duper low commitment. You say, oh, I've got this idea about blah, blah, blah. And then that will give you some signal. And then you can develop that further. And you can develop that further. And maybe it goes at some point from a post on social media to a blog post on your own website. And then again, you're just testing the ideas. And maybe you turn it into a presentation. Or maybe you turn it into a YouTube video. And again, you're getting more signal, and then you're like, right, this feels like the idea has legs. Let me now commit to writing the book. And then by which time you've probably got a bunch of material already, like even before you go and do any research or talk to any other people. And so what you can start to do is you can treat the book like a bunch of blog posts, and you can treat the chapter like a bunch of blog posts within the chapter. So you can outline, like for me, outlining for the win, like absolutely outlining. And that is how Nicola came to me with the book. Truth be told, it's like, well, I've got I think the book kind of looks like this. It will have this thing in it, and that thing in it, and that thing in it, and that thing in it. It's like, cool. So we would grab a chapter, or I would certainly grab a chapter, and I would outline it, so I could go, right, I think I'm going to write about this. And even that is something that you could share with people online, on social media, and say, well, I'm thinking of writing this. It's going to have these things in it. What do you think? And people either say, that's awesome, or they'll say, that sucks, don't do it. Or more than likely, they'll say, oh, well, here's some bits that you missed, or I don't think you need that part. Okay, cheers. And you take that information and you iterate again. And then you're just filling in the blanks at that point. You're just colouring in between the lines because you've already got the outline. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just writing a few lines about this, and then you do that. And then I was writing a few lines about that, and you do that. And then before you know it, you've got a chapter, and then you do it again. You've got 2 chapters, and then before too long, got a book. And that's how I approached it. And then everything that Nicola said is true. I've got a one-liner for it. Basically, however long you think it's going to take, it's going to take longer. Basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, however long you think it's going to take longer, especially if it's your first one. Especially if it's your first one, it's going to take longer. You will get better. You'll learn some skills. So that time will get shorter, definitely. But at the outset, it's going to take longer than you think. Everything that you think, it's, writing the thing is going to take longer. Editing the thing is going to take longer. All of that stuff.
That's great advice. And yeah, I think it's, as I said to you guys earlier, and I've also already announced it on a few different places, that I'm obviously going to be starting to write my own book. So this is all very helpful advice for me right now as well. So I very much appreciate it. So I think we're coming to the end of the show. But before we wrap it up, I just want to say a massive thank you to you both again for coming on and talking to us about the book and the process you went through, and sharing your knowledge and experience. But where can people find the book? Come on, let's do that promoting. Let's do that marketing. Where can people find the book?
Well, do you want me to? Well, it's on Leanpub. We've published it on Leanpub, and we've published it on Amazon. So you can find it on Leanpub at leanpub.com/Tester's Journey. That's all one word. And you can find the digital copy there. I think you can get a print copy as well. The print copy is available on Amazon. So wherever you are in the world, whichever your nearest Amazon website retailer is, you can use that. So you'll find it there. And it's so cool to see printed copies of the book. It is like, I'm still blown away by that, actually, that I can go to Amazon and buy a physical thing that I have helped create. It's nuts. But yeah, that's where you can get it. Leanpub, software tester's journey, and on Amazon. If you just search for the software tester journey, you will find it on Amazon.
And there's this funny thing called Christmas coming up, isn't there? That just drop it into people's stockings.
Listen,
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Either you are a people manager or you have a people manager, in which case direct them to either one of those sites. Tell them,
exactly.
Hey, I've got some training budget. Hit me up. Get me the book. It's awesome. And then you can use the managing up on them to get even more out of them. Absolutely amazing.
Get that promotion. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, big time.
And just more, how about yourselves? If people want to follow you guys or just learn more, where can they find you?
For me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. And then they can also, I blog a fair bit, so nicolalindgren.com. I also use Blue Sky, so I think it's like at nicolalindgren.bsky.social. But LinkedIn and my blog is probably your best bet.
Perfect.
You
How about
can.
yourself, Vern?
I'm still not used to saying I'm most active on LinkedIn. That is absolutely supremely weird to say in public, but it is the truth. I also have. I'm on most social media platforms as Tester from Leicester, but Leicester is abbreviated to the first 4 letters. So it's Tester from LEIC, all one word. You can find me on X. You can find me on Blue Sky, Mastodon. I don't use those last too much. I'm starting to use them more. And yeah, like I say, LinkedIn. I've got a website, vernonrichards.com. I've got a podcast with Bradshaw, The Vernon Richards Show. You can find that at vernonrichardshow.com. I've got a ton of crap. Just Google me, find me.
Just Google me. Oh my
You'll
God.
find. You'll find it. You'll
Little
find
humble
it.
brag right there.
Oh God, that sounded awful, didn't it? What I meant was,
And I'm not
jeez
editing
Louise.
it.
Oh mate. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, there's a lot of crap that I'm talking on the internet. It's pretty easy to find. That's basically what I'm saying. I talk a lot of nonsense on the internet. That sounded awful. Now I feel terrible.
Like, just to jump in there, Vern. You started this pod by saying you were from Leicester and you complained about the spelling of Leicester, and yet you use Leicester in your handle for all your different. Probably not the best.
Can I? Sorry, this is. So I mentioned earlier that I worked with you, Stu. So do you know who gave me that nickname?
Go on. Who was it?
Do you remember Dan? Well, I can't remember his last name. He was
Dan
a developer. Yes, Dan Elliott.
Dan Elliott.
So we would get the train. We would get the train together after work. So Stu, Dan, and I, we all worked together. And Dan and I would go in the same direction after work. And so, as you sometimes you'll go to work and you come back and you'll tell your significant other or about people at work. Oh, Stu did this, Nicola did that. And what he told me was, whenever he would refer to me to his wife, he'd go, "Oh yeah, I was at work and Vern did this," and she'd go, "Who?" She goes, "Vern, the tester from Leicester." And because it rhymed, I was like, "Yes, I'm having that. I need a Twitter handle. I'm using it." Sadly, character limits are a thing, and also I forgot that Twitter was global. And I thought, yeah, everyone's going to get this tester from Leicester. No, it's global. No one from the United States has heard of Leicester, so they call me Tester from Leek. I'm like, no, that's not what it is. No. This sounded like such a good idea at the time.
Brilliant.
Failure. So shout out to you, Dan, if you should happen to catch
this. Dan Elliott. Yes, you changed Vernon's life with that. So yeah, there you go. Again, thank you so much for joining the show. Everybody out there, get the book. Definitely get the book. Whether you get digital copy, whether you go on Amazon and purchase the physical copy, definitely go and get the book. Yeah, thanks again for joining. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned some stuff, which is great, and I'll definitely be tapping you both up in the future, if that's okay, for more advice as we move forward. So,
thank you for having us.
No, you're very
thanks
welcome.
for having us on, man. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You want to, and join us next time for another episode of Quality Talks podcast. Take care.
Comment, subscribe.